of that. And people out there, just do not comment on what a woman is eating. Don't comment on what our bodies are looking like while we're eating, or anything in between that.
Yeah, I think it's really important if you are not asked for your opinion, do not supply it, especially if we're talking about what's on my plate, how my body looks. I did not ask you. So please, respectfully, don't talk.
Do it.
The recording's in progress.
The recording's in progress, and we're here to talk about hood feminism.
Yay! Yes, we're talking all things hood and feminism.
I sounded way too preppy for that. I apologize for who I am as a person right now. Because what?
No, I was about to say, you can't be too pumped to talk about hood feminism. That's what I took from that.
I am on a caffeinated rampage. I have had an average of 3 cups of Vietnamese coffee, which apparently equate to 5 shots of espresso, according to my barista friend.
Wow.
I'm drinking about 3 of those cups before 11 a.m. every day for the last week.
Oh my gosh. Wow. So a lot of things must be going on right now for you.
Basically, I can see smells. And
Gotta
I read
love
this
coffee.
in 2 seconds.
Gotta love coffee.
Yes, got to love it. So speaking of coffee, you ready about eating disorders?
I know. Oh my gosh. Yes.
So Black girls don't have eating disorders. Oof, what a title.
What a title.
First thoughts, go.
Well, I thought it was just so specific, like to say Black girls don't have eating disorders. I think the point was that when you think about it, you think about white young women and girls in terms of eating disorders. Because I mean, I would never say Black girls and Black women don't have eating disorders, but I certainly wouldn't be like, oh, when I think of eating disorders, I think of anyone else but white women and white girls.
When was the first time that like disordered eating or like the idea that women's bodies were meant to look a certain way by society? I'm doing air quotes like constantly throughout that sentence. But when did you first notice that societal pressures on a woman's body, or on all of our bodies, let's be real, on any individual's body, that you were supposed to look a certain way? What age do you think that first hit you?
Oh my goodness. I remember somebody being in high school, somebody was talking about, there was like some type of drama, and within the gossip of that drama, they were talking about one person, and the accusation was that this one girl had an eating disorder. And I just remember hearing her say that because she was like the person they were talking about. And she was like, well, what if I did? And I was like, that's a great point. And so that was the first time I think I like heard it in like my everyday context. But I mean, since I can remember, I was definitely told, not directly, but indirectly, by the women that were chosen in magazines and in TV and just in media about body types that are beautiful and fantastic and ones that we should stay away from. What about you?
I remember there was a Disney Channel cartoon called Brace Face, where the main character, she was like this little cartoon blonde girl, had braces that were like magical braces. I wanted braces so bad. Anyways, there was an episode of her only drinking diet soda the entire episode. And at the end of the episode, she faints because it's Disney and they want to like nail the messaging. And then I also remember Sweet Life of Zack and Cody had an episode where Maddie and London also were told that their bodies were not good bodies, quote unquote. And so Maddie was trying to eat to make her figure more full, and London was trying to stop eating to make herself smaller.
Wow.
And then That's a Raven episode where they photoshopped Raven's body because she didn't have the look, quote unquote. And in particular, for me to see Brenda Song, who is Asian American, I think she's Hmong, and then to see Raven Simone both struggle with that, it did definitely help with my representation of an idea that all bodies are beautiful. Go Disney. But I remember being like third, fourth grade whenever that happened. And then I started getting concerned with my weight around that time too. So they were spot on.
Yeah, they were. I just listened to Raven and her wife was on Why Won't You Date Me by Nicole Byer, which is a fantastic podcast. I definitely recommend it.
Nicole Byer.
And so Raven was talking about how she was a woman, she was a young girl with a figure, you know, she had curves, and how it was really tough for her to navigate through media and through her career, where her career was. It was really hard for her to navigate those spaces as a kid because people kept telling her that she had the wrong figure. I just remember being a kid and like That's a Raven was my show because Raven felt real to me. You know, she wasn't this like unattainable standard. She was a real human.
I loved how like the unattainable standards in Disney Channel are like the houses that the adults have with like not seemingly to have any jobs, but they have like these amazing houses. Anyways, that's beside the point. But like, yes, Raven was a very real person that tackled a lot of social issues for us whenever we were younger. I remember the racism episode 2. Where Raven didn't get the job at the mall because the store manager literally said into a camera, "I don't hire Black people." I remember that hitting, and I was just like, oof.
As you said that, I like envisioned him. I remember it.
Yeah. And they went and caught the store manager on camera saying it to a hat. And that's how they caught it.
Yeah, a lot of social issues there.
Way to go, That's So Raven, and writers of That's So Raven.
Yes. Yeah.
Making it a good childhood. But that is such a young age to start noticing the differences in our body types. Like 4th grade?
Yes.
4th grade, I was also still like, you throw body issues into a 4th grader's head. I was complaining about like my snack during the day being a cheese stick or a slice of cheese. I didn't like the form my cheese came in. I didn't want to have to deal with, oh my goodness, my body looks wrong.
Yeah.
And the over sexualization of bodies that come from that, because why would anyone care what a body looks like? It's to be attractive. Why would like you want to be attractive? To attract a partner. Why are we so hyper focused on that?
I think you bring up a good point, because I feel if the focus was on health and people are saying like, okay, well, we're concerned because people aren't eating enough greens or enough vegetables or drinking enough water, then okay, the focus could be on that. But this certainly is not about health. And that is where it, to me, signals that it doesn't like it. We've made it matter, but originally we were fine.
Exactly. And on top of that, I recently found out that the BMI was racist.
Yeah. Yeah, Mikki Kendall talks about that. And how doctors and primary care physicians know BMI is basically bogus, but we still use it.
Yeah, we still use it. in the year of our Lord 2022. Like, I feel like that is also just a thing with the medical field too. Like, they're treating bodies like bodies are made in factories, and that there's not an individual body, and not every new body is a new case that you have to look at. Like, the treatment for you might not be the same treatment for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even if we both go in for a broken arm, you could have broken your arm in a different place than me. You're not going to treat it the same.
Right. And they shouldn't. Yeah. This goes back to beauty standards, which I feel like we talked about a couple of times. The current beauty standards are for specific groups of people. And if you don't fit into that, then then you're just automatically gonna be wrong.
And by the flip side of that, if the treatment for disordered eating is only geared towards white women, we're screwed.
Yeah, I thought Mikki Kendall did a really great job of emphasizing how even if people do go to treatment, if they have to deal with the same racism that they have to deal with in everyday society, it doesn't necessarily point them to more help or makes people want to actually get help. Because why would you if you're going to be subject to the same racism?
And like, we've already established racism is violence. It's emotional, it's mental, and it can also be physical violence. Like, if you are experiencing that while also trying to make your relationship with food better, and food is just such an integral part of like the human experience, like that, two and two together, no.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to want to change what I'm eating if food is something that brings me comfort from the fact that everyone else is being horrible and racist to me.
Yeah, it's two contrasts. Like, it's, you use food kind of as a coping. People have used food for coping, but it's nice because I mean, when I think about carbs, I think it's like a nice hug. So on like a cold day or a hard day, I'm like, let's do pasta.
Oh yes, I had peanut butter noodles for lunch today.
Ooh.
You mix peanut butter and soy sauce.
Oh my.
It is so good.
And that's what I'm saying. It makes me sad that people aren't able to enjoy all the beauties and all of the great things that comes from food because we're so worried about achieving a body type that was never meant for us to achieve.
Exactly. Like, I love how Kindle, I stuck sticky notes and things in it this week because I'm also using it as source for research. Fun stuff. Where did I put it? We characterize eating disorders as the province of well-off white girls, and we ignore the impact of daily prejudice, the many ways that having no safe spaces might make young people of color feel powerless. And in the constraints imposed by the wealth gap, which impacts not only the access to essential things like a home, transportation, and safety, but also the kinds of extracurriculars that validate their cultural context and self-image. And there is a recipe for disaster. So it's not even just about food. It's the wealth gap. It's inequality. It is having access to after school programs, to extracurriculars, to sports, to other outlets for stress. Like, whenever your being is being attacked and there is no outlet for that stress, like for me, it's gardening. Like, if I didn't have that, like, I'm privileged enough to have other outlets, but like for someone that doesn't have an outlet and food is already there because food is necessary to survive, that's what they're going to turn to.
Yeah. Which then points to like resources and communities that have like a bunch of resources versus and are well invested in, as opposed to communities that aren't. And it just really speaks to the importance again of those.
So what isn't racist in this situation? We've already established BMI, the diet whatever industry, industrial complex is also racist. Medicine is racist.
It's a really sad and heartbreaking list.
It encompasses so much of our lives.
I will say this certainly has been internalized, because when I was reading this chapter, I was just like, oh my God, this is my current struggle, because I sit around with elders in my family who are like, and it's always women, and they're always like, oh, well, looks like you've lost weight, looks like you've gained weight, it's like, oh, I have to like keep working out because I don't want to gain weight. Or people talking about like limiting what they eat because they don't want to gain weight. It's just like, so like I am surrounded when I'm in a group of women with conversations about weight. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. And so now I see my younger cousins. I don't think this might not be true. I don't remember caring about weight when I was in high school. I just remember like going to class, playing sports, and then going home. But I see my cousins, watching, like counting calories or doing crazy things like that. And they're like under 14. So
Yeah.
Current situation, and it's so interesting to read it because Mikki said, and I like highlighted it, and in my notes I said wow, because I was like, oh my God, why is she coming at me? She said, and even if they do, the narratives that position the curviness of Black girls' bodies as a warning sign of future obesity will lead them to congratulating you on watching your weight instead of grasping that there's a problem playing out in full view. And I was just like, oh my gosh, because it's so true.
Mikki Kendall. Yes. Like,
yeah, because I mean, whenever I say something, I'm like, well, we want to let our bodies do what they do naturally. There's nothing wrong with that. And people look at me like I'm crazy. Or when I say things like, women aren't valuable because of their bodies, people are like, what is she talking about? And so it certainly feels very frustrating sometimes.
Just need to unclench my jaw really quick. Like, saying something that is such just should be universal truth, but people acting like it is so profound and out there, just unclenching my jaw. Just, it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. Like, I don't.
It's tough out here when we're talking about body types and weight, and healthy habits.
And then whenever you throw in women on women violence, like we've discussed in past weeks, how do our brains like not come out of this meat grinder not going completely psycho?
I know. I don't know either.
Like, so like, what is our solution to this? Like, about Kendall ends this chapter by saying, above all, it's essential to do the work lobbying legislators and all levels to improve access to quality mental health services in every era. Yes, but that takes time.
Yes, it does.
What is our like stop it, what do we do now? Because it already feels like we are trying to put out a major house fire with just a water bottle.
Yeah, it's I loved what she said when she said eating disorders usually aren't even about food, because I think if we start looking at the root, I mean, which goes back to the solution that's going to take a lot of time, which is mental health. But you got to figure out why are these young Black girls why don't they have a healthy relationship with their body? Why don't they have a healthy relationship with food? And I mean, there are like a bunch of reasons that I'm sure would span across the race, but then it's individual. Like, is there something going on in the household? Did they hear something at school? Like, what's going on? And then I think her example was a really great one, where she was like, you look at a plate and it's like, maybe a couple pieces of lettuce, and instead of congratulating them on, oh, well, like, you know, good for you watching your figure, good for you making the healthy decision, be like, yo, are you like, I mean, encouraging, like, if you want more, then you're more than welcome to, that's fine. Cause I mean, I know I'm hungry. I think setting a good example is certainly a good thing we can do too.
Mm-hmm. I 100% have gotten questioned one time if I was eating for two.
Really?
Yep.
Oh.
Based on my takeout order.
I always believe go big or go home.
Like, I'm a huge fan of leftovers too, because I hate cooking. So, like, just all of that. And people out there, just do not comment on what a woman is eating. Don't comment on what our bodies are looking like while we're eating, or anything in between that.
Yeah, I think it's really important, if you are not asked for your opinion, do not supply it, especially if we're talking about what's on my plate, how my body looks. I did not ask you. So please, respectfully, don't talk.
Unless it's offering me a bigger spoon.
Yes.
Do not talk to me.
Yeah. If you want to offer chocolate, I'm all ears.
Yeah, if you have extra gravy, if you have extra like seasoning, like some salt, some pepper, cool. Thanks. If you're going to like look at me while I am eating a whole pot of mashed potatoes to myself, which I did, by the way, the evening they called the 2020 election. There is photographic evidence of me sitting over a giant stock pot of mashed potatoes and eating it and crying.
Yeah.
It was a good way to let out stress, mashing potatoes, and it was a great way to sit there and cry and watch like all the speeches and look at history. Anyways.
What inevitably became of that night.
I am sending you the photo actually right now. I'm gonna do it. So any last thoughts before we go on to the fetishization of fierce?
I did like how in this chapter, to wrap it up, Mikki Kendall talks about coping skills and how it's just coping skills are adapted in the lack of a better option. And I was like, wow, that's pretty profound, because I would think of coping skills as inevitable, because I guess I think of hardships as inevitable and we need healthy ways to cope with them. But because she said that, I was like, wait a second. I guess they're not inevitable. Maybe things can be better.
Oh, I love that, because it makes sense, because whenever you're thinking about options on how to de-stress, like, I have options. I am privileged enough to say I can take a nap. I can go do a face mask. I can take a walk outside. Like, very simple things like that are privileges that aren't afforded to a lot of people, like especially in the middle of the day. If you have like a giant blow up at work and you just need to take a lap and take a minute, sometimes like you're not allowed to do that. And so whenever like you don't have options, that's when it turns into more self-destructive behaviors.
I agree.
I'm still looking for this photo of me crying and eating mashed potatoes. But do you want to go ahead and introduce the fetishization of fierce?
Yes, I thought this was a nice cool down. It was still a great chapter, but after reading about eating disorders, I really like this chapter. She was essentially talking about how people support women who are fierce. They label them fierce, support them, quotation marks. But then whenever things get tough, or whenever it's not in the news cycle, whenever it no longer benefits us, then just leave people. I think the best way to describe it was she talks about how, here we go. Too often those who speak out are positioned more as sacrifices than saviors. And I think that really just speaks to the tone of this chapter, where we love when people speak up, but we don't really support them when they speak up.
Mm-hmm. We're just like, oh, that is so great, someone spoke up, and then you're sitting there going like, okay, cool, like, scroll.
Mm-hmm.
Like, where
that's about as much attention as we give to it.
Yeah. Like, where is it that we are actually stepping up and supporting it, putting our money where our mouth is,
Mm-hmm.
like utilizing the talents, the time, the energy that we do have to support people doing this, but also like what's also keeping us from stepping up ourselves.
Right.
We're letting other people take the fall for like the social fallout. We're letting other people risk the social fallout so that we can have our, I don't know, rights.
Air quote.
Air quote. Like, I love the examples that Mikki Kendall used in here with like Serena Williams. First of all, love Serena. Did you see that video of her just like walking around like tennis courts in like her neighborhood or something, and people and like these a couple of guys were like, oh my god, is that Serena? And then they were just like, we're playing a pickup game, do you want to play? And then she killed them. Anyway.
It was inevitable. The second she stepped on that court, they were all done.
And she was walking her dog.
Yes, I love, and I feel like I see her a lot more now, Serena Williams. I liked her, well, I highlighted what Mikki said because people were criticizing Serena because they thought she wasn't being polite enough when she was the victim of sexism and racism within matches. And I just don't understand how you can be polite enough. Like, why are you expected to be polite when responding to sexism or racism?
It goes back to respectability politics and goes back to respectability and quote unquote, who is defining respectability? It's already the people in power. The people in power already want us to be respectfully oppressed.
And that right. I hope that makes people laugh because that is ridiculous. That's just crazy. You're not being respectful in your protest, so you need to calm down.
You need to calm down. That goes back to all of the Black Lives Matter protests where they were calling them riots, when they were like, can't they just protest the right way? There is no right way to protest, people.
That was so silly. I mean, no. And that in itself is oppressive. The fact that you think you can tell me how to protest is in itself oppressive. I hope that message is conveyed.
Tone policing, like the whole, like, just telling people of the oppressed party how to be oppressed and how to be liberated. That's giving permission, which is not something the oppressed people need. What the oppressed people need is like for the oppressors to get out of the way.
It would be great if we weren't oppressed.
Yeah, like, excuse me, I'm sorry, but do you mind like not oppressing us for like 2 seconds? Like, that would be great.
Oh, and Mikki Kendall definitely talks about people who in their mannerisms are more socially accepted, whether they conform or they integrate, whether they like just take on that identity of social culture. And we're talking, think about like just some politicians who are like so engulfed in what is, and they're like so they're people of color, but they are very well acclimated to how things are and don't seem to be ruffling waters for the other people of color that they're supposed to represent. And thinking about those people and just like how much good you're able to do when when you do it the polite way, or when you do
Yeah.
it the way that the oppressed society wants you to.
It reminds me of that discussion that we had about Kendi. Love Kendi. Just always a shout out every time. Whenever Kendi was asked, or was it in Acho's book, but he referenced Kendi, and then we're always going back to Kendi because we love Kendi. Anyways, how people of color can't be racist, but we can be oppressors of our own people whenever we sacrifice the greater good and sacrifice the betterment of our people for our own gains.
Mm-hmm. And the answer is no. You look back, and I mean, there are good things that can be done from within the system. Shaun King, I believe his name is, he has a podcast and he talks about like the Malcolm versus the Martin Luther approach, and how Malcolm X was like super not popular in the public eye and the way he did things, and Martin Luther was more respected. We're not going to pretend like whitewashed history is correct. He was not well loved, but more respected.
They still assassinated him.
And if you look at, I mean, exactly, he was not that well loved. But arguably, when you think about how far human rights have come, then he's definitely someone who comes to mind. And Malcolm X, the way he's taught in history is like he was very violent and just not well loved. And Shaun King just came to the conclusion, you need both. You need people within the system who are able to move along, and then you need people outside. They're both like equally valuable.
They're equally valuable, and yet somehow whenever I try to be someone that works within the system, I feel like none of us are the person that works in the system or the person that is like banging on the outside, like F the system. I feel like we switch back and forth all the time as individuals, because like, yes, I go to protests, but yes, I also work in a very whitewashed institution that is social work.
Yeah.
So it's like, I love how in school we were taught that the social worker's responsibility to anti-racism was to work both within and outside of the system at the same time.
Yeah, because as we're seeing, the system is not designed in any way to benefit us. So like working within the system, it's what is available. And if you're like Barack Obama, former President Barack Obama, who I miss so much, he is somebody who really believes in the system, you know, and he's worked from within it and done some really great things. But there are limits, certainly, to what can be done within the system.
Exactly. Like, this is also my argument whenever my parents are like, you participate in capitalism. And I was like, yeah, but I don't have to like it. I can believe in universal health care and still pay my taxes, Mom. Wait, that's socialism too. Anyway.
Oh, wait. Yeah, I mean, we don't have a choice. We've definitely talked about this. I would love to not have to participate in capitalism, but I don't really have a choice. Like, I need health insurance, so I had to work.
Yep.
I need food, I need shelter, and unfortunately, in our society, you have to work to be able to obtain those.
Yep. And also, I like plants.
Yes.
So it's just like, how can we have more solidarity with the people who are more inclined to be sticking their necks out for the rest of us? Like those people with these platforms, but yeah, they have platforms, but yeah, they also get death threats. Like, how can we better support these people while also coming to terms with stepping up ourselves? Do you think?
Mikki Kendall definitely talks about victim advocacy, something, and then victim-centered feminism, which I thought were really really, really important in the solution. If you look at it from the victim's perspective, how can we support them? So an example is definitely for someone who stands up and tells their story, offering like very tangible support, like we can start a GoFundMe, and we can, or it doesn't even have to be a GoFundMe, it could be some type of nonprofit who helps to make sure that food safety, shelter is provided for people. And I think just thinking, and Mikki talks about this, thinking long term. Okay, this person is doing this, so like, will this mess with their employment? Will this mess with their shelter? Will this mess with their access to things? And then being able to be proactive and being able to provide that to them.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's a great way that we can support that. People that are like obviously doing the work, and people who are putting themselves out there because they believe that a better society is out there. Like, I am not those people because I am a pessimist, but I will support the people.
I was about to say, but they're out there and they deserve support for those of us. And then they're like carrying the hope and the optimism for all of us.
It's true. It's true. It's warming my cold, dead heart. It really is. Oh my goodness. Well, this has been a great discussion. My brain has been like mashed potatoes. Speaking of mashed potatoes, like this entire week since like maybe last Tuesday. Oh, full week now.
Wow.
Since I have put my insane plans into motion. So our next upcoming chapters are The Hood Doesn't Hate Smart People and
Interesting.
Missing and Murdered.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh goodness.
Oof.
Yeah, I feel like the next one's gonna be interesting. But Mikki Kendall has not gone in the direction I've expected.
It's true.
I don't think any chapter, so it should be interesting.
It's true. These chapters have been so well named and so well titled.
Yes.
And then they just take it and run with it. And I love it.
Yes, it's been a fantastic book. I think we're halfway through, so I look forward to the second half.
Yeah, we are halfway through.
Yay!
Amazing. Alrighty. Well, I will see you next week. Thank you again, as always, for coming and listening to my rants, ramblings, and letting me kill a bug straight on a recording.
It is an honor. I have so much fun.
Alrighty.
Bye.
Bye.